These are 15 things that filled every 1950s living room, but have completely vanished from modern homes. From massive television consoles that doubled as furniture to ashtrays in every corner, the post-war living room was a different world than what we know today. Walk into your grandparents' house in 1955, and the first thing you would notice is how permanent everything felt. That television console dominating one wall was not an appliance you replaced every few years. It was a major purchase, built like furniture and meant to stay put. The room itself was arranged around objects that looked heavy, expensive, and long-term, even when the technology inside them was still new. The heart of the change was television. In 1946, only 7,000 TV sets were sold in the United States. 4 years later, that number jumped to 5 million. By 1959, nearly 90% of American homes had a television set. These sets were not slim screens on a wall. They were floor-standing console televisions that looked like armoires with small screens tucked inside cabinets the size of refrigerators. These console TV sets were made from real wood and styled to match the room. Families positioned chairs and sofas to face them. The better models from companies like Magnavox and Zenith did not just play television, they combined radios, record players, and storage in one unit. A top-of-the-line Magnavox Concert Grand cost over $1,000 in 1950s money, roughly $10,000 today. That price shows how seriously people treated home entertainment. Right beside the television console, you'd often find another floor-standing monument, the console radio. Even as television took over, radio consoles stayed in living rooms as furniture-grade sound systems, with warm tube audio housed in polished wooden cabinets. Today, those vintage tube radios are collectible, often ranging from $100 to over $1,000 depending on condition. And restored Zenith floor consoles can sell for much more because collectors recognize the craftsmanship. By the mid-1950s, music lovers wanted high-fidelity stereo consoles. Before then, high fidelity usually meant separate components scattered around the room. Integrated stereo consoles brought radio tuners and record players together in a single cabinet that looked like it belonged with the rest of the furniture. 1958 became known as the first year of stereo, and companies like Telefunken expanded production to meet demand for these furniture-style audio systems. If you needed to call someone to brag about your new stereo, you did not pull a phone out of your pocket. You walked over to a rotary dial telephone. Many homes had a wall phone in the kitchen, but plenty also had additional phones elsewhere in the house. The rotary dial design dated back to 1907, though it did not become common in American homes until the early 1920s, and dialing took patience. You put your finger in the right hole, turned the dial to the metal stop, let it spin back, and repeated that process for every number. When rotary phones became popular in the 1940s and the 1950s, adults were just as confused as kids would be today, because it was a learned skill. Even President Eisenhower reportedly struggled with it at first. By 1959, some homes had the Princess phone, but it still used the rotary mechanism, and touch-tone phones did not arrive until 1962, introduced as a novelty at the World's Fair. Then there were the ashtrays, everywhere, all the time. This was the golden age of smoking, when nearly half the American population regularly lit up. Ashtrays were not hidden away. They were decorative objects placed on coffee tables and end tables, built into furniture, and sometimes set on their own floor-standing smoking stands. Those stands could include storage for cigarettes and matches, and some even had built-in lighters, because the living room was designed around the assumption that guests would smoke. It's hard to picture now, especially with smoking rates down from over 40% in the 1960s to just 11% today. But in the 1950s, the ashtray was as normal as a coaster. The room layout often made space for it, just like it made space for the television. And once the TV became the center of the room, another object showed up to support it, the TV tray. These folding metal trays with vinyl tops let families eat in front of the screen without balancing a full plate on the sofa. They were made for the new habit of watching television as a family, and they matched perfectly with the rise of the TV dinner. The TV dinner began with a very specific problem. In late 1953, Swanson had 260 tons of leftover frozen turkey after Thanksgiving. sitting in 10 refrigerated railroad cars. The refrigeration only worked when the cars were moving, so the trains traveled back and forth between Nebraska and the East Coast while executives decided what to do. Salesman Jerry Thomas suggested turning the turkey into complete meals by adding cornbread stuffing and sweet potatoes packed into partitioned aluminum trays. The packaging was designed to look like a miniature television set, complete with dials. In 1954, the first full year of production, Swanson sold 10 million TV dinner trays at 89 cents each, which was expensive for the time. Families heated the aluminum tray in the oven and ate straight from it, using TV trays as tables, and the living room became a dining room whenever a favorite show came on. To get that show in the first place, most television sets relied on rabbit ear antennas. Those V-shaped metal rods sat on top of the set, and getting a clear picture meant constant adjusting. Analog TV didn't simply work or fail the way digital signals do. Families developed their own little rituals, rotating the antenna, extending the rods, and trying to find the one position where the picture stopped rolling. Because those bright screens could feel harsh in a dark room, many homes used TV lamps, decorative lights meant to provide soft background illumination while watching television. These were not just ordinary lamps. They were designed for television viewing and often came in the era's popular styles, including atomic age shapes and ceramic figurines. They helped reduce the contrast between the glowing screen and the rest of the room, which was a real concern for families who spent long evenings in front of the TV. If you sat down on the good furniture in many homes, you might also hear the unmistakable crinkle of plastic slipcovers. Clear or patterned plastic protected upholstery from spills, wear, and fading, but it also made sitting uncomfortable. In summer, it stuck to your skin. In winter, it felt cold, and every movement announced itself. Still, for families trying to keep expensive furniture looking new, plastic covers were a practical compromise, and many people only removed them for special occasions or important guests. On top of that furniture, and on many tables, you would find doilies and antimacassars. Doilies were small decorative mats placed under lamps, vases, and serving pieces. Antimacassars covered the backs and arms of chairs and sofas. The term antimacassar came from macassar oil, a hair treatment from the Victorian era that stained furniture. And while that original purpose faded, the decorative habit stayed. As one former department store buyer put it, there was a time when every cake stand, plate, and saucer needed a paper doily to look respectable, and events like inviting the vicar to tea or holding a cake sale felt unthinkable without a steady supply. In the 1950s, these lace pieces still signaled propriety and presentation, and they also required constant care, washing, starching, and pressing to keep them crisp. For families who entertained, another status symbol often appeared: the cocktail bar cabinet. These pieces of furniture held glasses, bottles, shakers, and everything needed to mix drinks at home, because cocktail culture made a home bar feel like a mark of adult sophistication and suburban success. Some were elaborate, with specialized compartments and preparation surfaces. Others were modest, but they all carried the same message: a proper home should be ready for guests. The living room itself often reflected that same formality. Many homes arranged matching furniture sets symmetrically around a coffee table, creating a good room meant to impress visitors. It could feel stiff, almost like a waiting room, because the point wasn't comfort, it was presentation. Families often kept that space pristine for company, while daily life happened elsewhere, and the living room became a showcase of taste and status. And finally, no respectable 1950s living room felt complete without a prominent set of encyclopedias. Multi-volume collections from companies like Britannica or World Book were displayed on shelves or stands as symbols of education and aspiration. They were expensive investments, often sold door-to-door by persistent salesmen who emphasized their value for children's homework and general knowledge. Before the internet, owning a full set meant having a reference library at home, and families took pride in those leather-bound volumes. The disappearance of these items tells the story of how completely our living spaces have changed. We went from rooms filled with permanent, substantial objects to spaces shaped by wireless technology and minimalist design. We stream instead of adjusting antennas. We text instead of dialing rotary phones. And we no longer build living rooms around ashtrays and smoking stands. The 1950s living room was built on the idea that furniture should last, that the home should be ready for both daily life and formal entertaining, and that the main room of the house should show the world who you were. Today, the function is similar: relaxation and togetherness. But the objects that defined that era have either vanished or been replaced by something almost unrecognizable. These 15 details are more than nostalgia. They're a record of how quickly everyday life can change when technology, habits, and social norms shift all at once.